Ubisoft when they're making slop. And that is genuinely how I feel about the modern Ubisoft games. They're slop. Sometimes they can be tasty slop. I did enjoy my time with Far Cry 6, but it's still slop.
Check out this Puna's voice. 5 feet 1 inch, cartoon voice, defending Star Wars Outlaw 2.
This is adorable.
He passes as a bass jack.
She's insisting she's CIS in the comments, despite her old trans-focused vids, including squeaking at her poor old dad, and well, her face and body and voice.
How do FTMS grow so much facial hair, and don't their voices deepen? Why they sound like that?
My wife could kill this Puna in 1 round.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. So, a few weeks ago, I made a video about all the things I liked in Star Wars Outlaws, and everyone was very normal and reasonable about this. Just kidding, it's the most disliked video on my entire channel, with literally hundreds of comments personally insulting me for liking a video game. One of these very rational and normal individuals shared my video on 4chan's LGBT board, along with the accusation that I am a pooner. Which, if you don't know, because why would you, is 4chan slang for a trans man who doesn't pass or doesn't look and act manly enough. This is not the first time that I've been transvestigated. This happens fairly regularly, especially when I talk about controversial subjects like Star Wars. This is, however, the first time, at least to my knowledge, that I've graced the illustrious halls of 4chan, so that's something of a milestone, isn't it? I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do about this. I'm not trans, I've never claimed to be trans, I've in fact many times plainly and clearly stated the opposite, and yet this persists and probably will for the rest of my career, and I guess I just have to make my peace with that. It's just one of the many joys that comes along with being a public figure. But at the same time, this kind of fascinates me. I mean, put yourself in my shoes for a second. There's a creepy stalker thread about you on 4chan meticulously scrutinising every single detail about you. Would you be able to ignore that? Or would you keep the tab open and meticulously screenshot every single part of the discussion as it comes through? I know what I would do. Unfortunately, these twits spent half of the thread arguing about Star Wars because of course they did, but the ones that were about me were undeniably fascinating. I want to have some fun with this, but first I want to clarify 2 things. Number 1, I am not offended by the insinuation of being trans, and I don't want to come across that way. Some of these folks are certainly using trans as an insult, but I am not insulted by it, because there's nothing wrong with being trans. They're just factually wrong, and I think it's important to make that clear before we get further into this topic. Number 2, I have it on the authority of several trans folk that it is okay to laugh at this situation. Yes, it's a bit creepy and obviously very transphobic, but these people are weird and ridiculous and their claims are insane. It's okay to laugh at them. So, with all that said, let's begin the trans trial of Kyle the Scot. Members of the jury, with the evidence provided to us by the illustrious investigators over at 4chan, I think you will clearly see that the defendant is a woman. Exhibit A. The defendant has previously made videos on transgender topics.
Hold it!
Going to assume you're referencing this one, so if I can just submit the video itself to the court. Before we get into this, I should be clear that I am cisgendered, or cis, meaning I am the gender I was born as. Uh-oh, I think I found a contradiction in the evidence. Not to accuse my creepy stalkers of not doing their due diligence, but the video is pretty explicitly about a trans game from a cis perspective and why that sort of thing is so important because it exposes me to life experiences that I don't have. Because I'm not trans. It's a video about a trans subject, sure, but very much rooted in a cis perspective, because trans people are not the only people in the world that can talk about trans subjects. Next. The defendant has he/him pronouns listed on all of his social media accounts.
Hold it!
Also known as the pronouns in bio attack. I find this one particularly funny because you may have noticed that I also start all my videos like this, but I guess they have to go to my socials to confirm. Obviously just the act of writing my pronouns doesn't make me trans, right? But I guess I should explain why I do this. This is something I started doing and including in my videos because of some arguments I heard from trans people, and particularly non-binary people. I have a light side reason and I have a dark side reason. The light side reason is just that it's a nice thing to do. It normalises the practice of giving pronouns, which makes life slightly easier for non-binary folks. The dark side reason is that it triggers people. It's actually a very good filter for the kind of people who make a huge fuss over pronouns, because if that's going to trigger them so much, then I don't want them in my audience anyway. So that's why I include my pronouns. I don't really care if people misgender me. I mean, it doesn't happen very often because, but if they do, it doesn't bother me because they're obviously wrong and silly. Next. There is a video of the defendant's father where he looks and sounds like a normal adult man. Hey, Dad.
Hello.
I just wanted to give you congratulations on being a normal adult man.
Thank you.
Here, up top.
Is that normal?
I'm not sure what that's supposed to prove. I guess it's just evidence that my inherent femininity isn't genetic or something. Next. The defendant made a joke at the end of a Q&A video when presented with the question, "What's up with your voice?" He responded that it was an interesting story, and then quickly ended the video. And, oh hang on, I've got one more question. Why does your voice sound like that? That's actually a really funny story, so... If the defendant had some sort of medical condition or deformity that made his voice that way, why would he not simply say that as opposed to always avoiding the question like he does whenever the topic comes up? Furthermore, I don't know of any deformity that would give you a typical female height, body, and voice with facial hair and body hair, but a female to male transition would do that.
Objection!
Okay, here's something you need to understand. These people are working backwards from a foregone conclusion. They already think I'm trans, and so all of this evidence is just the supporting evidence to the fact that they already know. I'm pretty sure that for most people, the original factor on this is my voice. I don't have a man's voice, that's the claim, and so everything else is just supporting evidence. And the thing about that is, they can just make shit up when it comes to the supporting evidence, like the claim that I'm 5'1", average female height. I don't know where they're pulling that from, but I'm 5'7", the same height as my dad, a normal adult man, and literally the global average standard for male height. I'm so boring. As for my typical female frame, in reference to what exactly? My child-rearing hips? Okay, I mean seriously, what? Would it help if I draw some triangles? Here, consider this a one-time treat. As you can see, no surgery scars, no binder, and most importantly, I don't need to blur anything to stay monetized. That's all you're getting. If you want to see more, you have to subscribe to my OnlyFans. They're making shit up, right? They've already decided that I'm trans, and so they're projecting female traits onto me that I don't actually have because I must have them because I'm trans. It's the total opposite of how investigation is supposed to work. Trans men are usually short, therefore I must be short. Clearly my mannerisms are feminine. The female body language on display here is insane. I feel like a German shepherd spotting Terminators, and this one reeks of machine oil and metal. Oh, you're sniffing something, mate, but it ain't Terminators. Objection. All this is proven is that the defendant clearly transitioned before puberty. Right, yeah, about that. Here's a picture of the first 10 years of my life, so you tell me what age I was when I transitioned. Did it happen in the womb? Plus, if I've been a man for that long, then why would I have female mannerisms? Surely that would come from being socialized as a woman. I mean, guys, I think some of your evidence might be contradictory. The one point they have, the one point that isn't just completely made up, is that I have an atypical voice. But that's all it takes, isn't it? One slip up, one sign of nonconformity, anything that can be used to otherize you and put you into a box where all sorts of other assumptions can be made about you. Objection. We can't take the defendant at their word, they could be lying. Photos can be faked. We don't even know that this is a photo of the defendant. I think the jury will clearly see that this is just a desperate attempt by the defendant to hide their shame at being trans. Judge, I think we're ready for a verdict. And that's the thing, isn't it? Arguing against this is ultimately a pointless exercise because they're not looking to be convinced. They've already decided, and therefore all evidence you present to the contrary must just be fake. I could drop my trousers right now and they'd claim that it was CGI or that it was clearly a transplant or whatever else. There's literally nothing I could do to convince these people otherwise. You, a reasonable person, might rightly be asking, why the hell would I lie about this and go to such lengths to mislead you? I understand that trans people have it rough out there, but progressive video essayist may be one of those few illustrious careers where being trans might actually help my career. And there isn't a rational answer to that because there is no rational explanation. They assumed I was trans, and when they heard evidence to the contrary, instead of accepting that, they doubled down. My reason for lying is that I must be lying, otherwise they would be wrong. I should clarify here that while I'm using the word trans, a lot of these people are not being so, shall we say, PC. Because thanks to all this, I get to experience my own little slice of transphobia, and boy oh boy, let's just say I won't be reading any of those comments out loud. I mean, the entire concept of transvestigation is transphobic, obviously, but even just a taste of what trans people have to put up with on a day-to-day basis is illuminating and horrifying. So, why do people do this? Well, one of my creepy stalkers actually gave an answer to this question. For fun! Which, if you can divorce this from any sort of reality where I'm a person with thoughts and feelings and emotions, if I'm just a mystery to be solved on the screen, then sure, mysteries are fun, right? Why do you think I framed this whole thing as an Ace Attorney parody? Something about our brains just enjoys investigating and hunting down clues, right? That's what the entire appeal of the Ace Attorney series is, or characters like Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Sholmes. Transvestigation is still investigation, and investigation is fun. It's just the sort of fun you can only have with the shield and separation that the internet provides. Because right now, just talking to you through a screen, I may as well not exist. I'm just a collection of pixels. I do not exist in your world once you close this video. You know, the most common question I get on YouTube is, what's wrong with your voice? Asked with more or less sincerity or insults. And that's a question with a lot of baggage, isn't it? Firstly, it suggests there is something wrong with my voice. There isn't, at least not medically. Secondly, it's just a bit rude, innit? Let me tell you something. Nobody has ever asked me this question in real life. Because of course they haven't, that's just basic social etiquette. It's the sort of question you can only ask with the shield of anonymity. Imagine walking up to a stranger on the street and going, "Excuse me, sir, I'm just wondering, what the fuck is wrong with your face? No offence. I think you might offend that person." Some people seem to think that when they ask a question, they're owed a response. The reason I don't give real answers when people ask that question is that it's not a sincere question. It's a thinly veiled insult by a complete stranger who's never going to watch another one of my videos anyway and doesn't actually care about the answer. If you ask that sort of question to someone in real life, you might make them cry, or you might get punched in the face. Either way, your impact is tangible and real. But the internet robs this kind of obviously shitty behaviour of any consequence. In fact, in some sort of bizarro twist, the burden is on me for even being offended. If I respond to these comments or acknowledge them in any way, then I'm the one giving them power. I'm not supposed to be upset when hundreds of people are insulting me and scrutinising every single detail about me. I'm supposed to be like a Vulcan and have it not affect me in any way whatsoever. Oh, what did you expect? You're a YouTuber. Don't get me wrong, I have pretty thick skin. I wouldn't still be doing this if I couldn't take the heat. Oh, honey, if you think you could come up with a new way to insult me or my voice, you're wrong. Someone once told me that I sounded like I was stabbed through the throat with an egg blender soaked in flu virus. You think you're gonna beat that? Good luck. But I do find this expectation that I and every single other person on the internet is just supposed to ignore harassment and not let it faze them quite annoying. I'm a person with thoughts and feelings. I think this gets into the broader subject of how we talk about and treat celebrities, which is extremely weirdly. Because yes, transvestigation is obviously a symptom of transphobia, but it's also a symptom of our extremely weird relationship with fame. Transvestigation is technically just a thing that anyone can do, but it's most commonly associated with a bizarre conspiracy theory that almost every celebrity on the planet is secretly trans and part of some sort of secret Satanist cabal. Henry Cavill, Emilia Clarke, Elon Musk, trans, all of them, every single celebrity you can think of is secretly trans. Except for the actually trans celebrities, they are detransitioners. Oh, what a twist! These guys are the reason for all those pictures of celebrities with lines drawn all over them. The people who get really obsessed with hip ratios and jawlines and chin protrusions and skull sizes. The same thing that was done to me, just, more. The drive behind this is the same drive as any conspiracy theory. There is a certain romance to some people of uncovering this deep truth that nobody wants you to know about, but you're smart enough to uncover the truth. But it's also a product of the total detachment of thinking about the people you're talking about as actual people. When you reach a certain level of fame, people stop treating you like an actual person and start treating you like a character. This is something that Lindsay Ellis covers pretty well in her video about Yoko Ono and the Beatles. If you were to ask someone, is Paul McCartney a real person? They would probably say, yes, of course Paul McCartney's a real person. What the heck are you talking about? But, is Paul McCartney as real as your grandpa? I've met my grandpa. I've hugged him many times. I've never hugged Paul McCartney. If you've never met someone, if you've only ever seen them through a screen, then of course they feel less real to you than the people right in front of you. In my day-to-day life, Paul McCartney is as real to me as Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Also, Paul McCartney was killed and replaced with a doppelganger. John Lennon tried to tell us, but he was silenced for it. Same shit, different millennium. What the internet has done has massively reduced the amount of fame you need to have in order to reach this level of non-personhood. Case in point, me, I've already reached this point where I'm just a fictional character on someone else's screen. I'm not real, I don't exist, so it's fine to analyse me and pick apart my entire life, right? It's fine. It's not hurting anyone, right? Transvestigation was in the headlines fairly recently because of a high-profile example during the Paris Olympics. An Algerian female boxer won her match rather quickly, which led to rampant and wrong speculation that she was secretly a man. I would say primarily fueled by, who else, everyone's favourite children's author, Robert Galbraith. Could any picture sum up our new men's rights movement better? The smirk of a male who knows he's protected by a misogynist sporting establishment, enjoying the distress of a woman he's just punched in the head, and whose life ambition he's just shattered. Hashtag Paris 2024. Uh-huh. In case I have to say, the woman in this photo, Amin Khalif, is a cis woman. But thanks to Joanne and a bunch of other weirdos, she's received a mountain of hate and abuse and was forcibly thrust into the public eye. Because that's the thing, Amin Khalif isn't a celebrity, or she wasn't anyway. She's an Algerian female boxer. Quick, name one other Algerian female boxer right now, I dare you. These people aren't celebrities. But in a day, she went from 0 to 1 million off the back of some completely wrong accusations. That's terrifying. Just for the record, she's currently suing J.K. Rowling, amongst others, which, yeah, I think she might have a case there. But I think this case helps demonstrate another factor going on here, which is, what is gender, man? Shall we take a look at the evidence? Because these are thorough investigators, as we know, and in 2023, Amin Khalif was disqualified from a boxing tournament for high levels of testosterone in her system. First of all, high levels of testosterone is not enough on its own as grounds to claim that someone is male. Secondly, everything about this test in this tournament is just the shadiest shit you've ever heard. The test was administered by the IBA, the International Boxing Association, who have not disclosed the test methodology or the results, just the judgment. Bit weird. Although in a statement this July, they also claimed that they didn't even do a testosterone test, so, which one is it, you guys? Thirdly, the IBA is currently controlled by this guy, Umar Kremlev, seen here sitting next to Vladimir Putin, and he's host to a whole bunch of accusations of corruption and collusion with the Russian government. And hey, this is just a random fact, but Amin Khalif was suspended from that tournament 2 days after beating a Russian boxer. It's probably just a coincidence though. I'm not accusing the IBA of being dodgy and corrupt. The International Olympic Committee is though, which is why the IBA have been suspended from participating in the Olympics since 2019. I don't know, you guys, I think this source might have a few red flags. The IOC, on the other hand, has found absolutely no evidence that Amin Khalif is secretly a man. Who are you gonna believe, though? The Olympics are obviously corrupted by the woke liberal elite. Unlike the Russian government, who would never lie about anything. On top of all that, though, it's worth noting that even the IBA have never explicitly claimed that Amin Khalif is a trans woman. Our boy Umar said that she had XY chromosomes, but of course he provided no evidence of that claim, or even any evidence that he tested for that. He just said it. But he seems like a really trustworthy guy, so, who are you gonna believe? A point that often goes unstated in this discussion, but I'm going to say it, is that gender transition is fucking illegal in Algeria. So the idea that a trans woman could make it all the way to the Olympics representing a country that still arrests people for being gay, it's insane on the face of it, unless you're suggesting that she's some sort of super spy who can falsify government documents like her birth certificate. But really, all of this is after-the-fact investigation, right? No one knew any of this crap until people had already decided that she was a man. Just like in my case, you make your assertion and then you go looking for evidence to support it. No matter how flaky or dodgy that evidence is, it has to be true. Otherwise, you would be wrong. Why is Iman Khalif a man? I mean, look at her. That's clearly a man, right? There's no logic to this at all. She looks kind of masculine in that picture and she's taller than her opponent. Ergo, man. Brilliant deduction, you guys. All of this is just the enforcement of an ever-constricting view of what a normal man or woman is supposed to look like. I don't think she looks like a man, for the record. I think she looks like a female boxer. Of course she's not a petite little Barbie doll. But how are we even defining those words anymore? I mean, after all, apparently I have a female figure, so who am I to judge? Is gender even something you define for yourself, or is it something that others define for you? Is Iman Khalif a woman because she's lived her entire life as one, or is she a man because J.K. Rowling and Donald Trump said she is? Gender by committee. To put this into perspective, less than 1% of the population are trans. That is a fraction of the percentage of the entire global population, and it means the transvestigators are going to be wrong 99% of the time. This is why when you hear stories about bathroom policing, it's not trans people who really need to be scared, it's us cis folks, because all of this doesn't really have anything to do with transition. It's about people's discomfort with people who don't conform to society's expectations of their assigned gender roles. You cannot tell just by looking at someone if they are trans because people come in all shapes and sizes. All the jawlines and hip widths and skull diagrams the conspiracy nuts are going on about are just averages. You get 7 feet tall women and 4 feet tall men. You get women with big chins and you get men with no chins at all. It's all completely arbitrary. And trying to apply strict guidelines to these things will exclude way more cis people than it will trans people. Because guess what? Most trans men are a lot more masculine than I am because they actually try. They take hormones or have surgery done, or at the very least do a bunch of research and practice to appear more masculine. I don't do any of that.
I mean, I could put on my big boy voice if you prefer, if that would make you more comfortable.
But I'm not under the same level of scrutiny that actual trans men are, and my sense of self isn't built around the fear of being perceived as a woman. I don't think trans men should have to live with that fear either, but unfortunately that's not the world we live in. So there was one comment on my little transvestigation thread that stuck with me more than the others. More than the creepy analysis, and even more than the one that called my dad a normal adult man. It was this one. Holy shit, gross! Thanks for more rep fuel! Rep fuel is another charming piece of 4chan slang. It's short for repression fuel, or in other words, things that make you want to not transition and suppress your gender identity. And that actually upsets me way more than any of the crap about me being a woman, or that I'm Pooner Wings of Redemption. Let's be real, this is probably a teenager, right? And the thought that there's some kid out there who's not transitioning specifically because they don't want to be like me, that is actually quite upsetting. So if you're this kid, either literally or figuratively, I want to give you a little message. People have made fun of my voice for my entire life. When I was in primary school, I was Mickey Mouse. In 2024, I'm a secret woman. I'm sure in a few more years, it'll be something new and exciting. I get comments about this on a near daily basis, and I'm sure they're only going to get even more common as the channel grows. But the truth is, I don't hate the way I sound. Sure, I was self-conscious about it for a long time, but if I genuinely hated it, I would change it. That's just a thing you can do. I don't want to sound like a big manly man, I want to sound like me. And this is me. But you're not me. You're you, and you owe it to yourself and to the world to be the realest version of you that there is. Sure, some people will judge, some people will be mean, but you cannot live your life in fear of those people because there's always going to be those people who will look for the worst in you no matter what you're doing. The only opinion that really matters is the one in here. That's right, mine. My opinion is the only one that matters, and I for one accept our trans Satanist overlords. No, look, take my example to heart. There is no way to tell if someone is trans or not, and anyone who thinks they've got it figured out is lying to themselves. So, just do you in whatever way makes you happy. Don't use me as an excuse to stop you. The only standards you need to live up to are your own. Also, get off 4chan. Oh my god, I can't imagine a worse place to try and figure out your gender identity than that cesspit. And yeah, don't transvestigate. It's bad, and you're always going to be wrong. Thank you for watching, and a very special thank you to my wonderful patrons for your continued support. If you'd like to see your name up here, or just support the things that I do, then please consider signing up, it would mean a lot to me. As well as a like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video and all that stuff. If you're interested in my extremely controversial views about liking video games, then you can find those up here, or for something kind of tangentially related, do you remember when Sweet Baby Inc. was all the rage? I did make a video about that a few months ago. Oh, this is not actually a very comfortable place to sit. I'm gonna get up now.